share. Thanks for the opportunity to share some of our tips that we have related to scholarship essays. So, as Miss Joy said, today is a follow up to the presentation that I done yesterday on funding your college education. And today's tips will hopefully help as a guide as you go through some of the scholarship applications that you may complete, many of which will ask for an essay. And as I always say, the essay should not be viewed as another hurdle in order to obtain scholarship funding. It should actually be viewed as your opportunity to share your story. And I say, even the playing field. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's presentation. So, as I mentioned, we're talking about telling your story. And before we get into that content, just to kind of pick up where I left off yesterday and share just a couple of things to make sure I'm making the connection. To start, build that professional network. Use LinkedIn, use whatever means you can to start working on your network. As early as age 14, even 13, you can build a LinkedIn profile and start assembling and adding different individuals from different areas into your network. Now, one thing I didn't mention yesterday was you can also meet professionals or experts in different fields, areas that you may not have thought about or may not have had much exposure to. Doesn't hurt to ask questions on the network, and that's one thing that I encourage you to do. So, as I said yesterday, your parents, friends, that's where you start with your professional network, and also your friends' parents. Those are the two places. Those are trustworthy individuals, so that you're not going out and trying to meet strangers or anything like that. But that's a solid starting point for building your network, which will help you get scholarship money, obtain internships, or even job opportunities. So, follow up to that, and I also talked about this yesterday, was the list of what you need to know and things that I talked about yesterday as far as funding your education. This was kind of the summary of things to know. So one, do some career planning early on. Take the assessments that are available to better understand where your interests lie, where your interests align with your strengths as well as your passions, and finding a career that kind of coordinates all three. So also your funding options, knowing that there are scholarships out there as well as loans and grants that can help you fund your education. I remember the goal that I set yesterday was to apply for at least 10 scholarships. That's at minimum. But depending on where you are in your in your high school career, that number should be much higher. Use loans when necessary, and then also building that profile. So now that the stage is set, now let's talk about let's spend more time on the scholarship application and what all that should entail. So with scholarships, as I mentioned, you oftentimes have to submit an essay. And when you submit an essay, here are four things that I want you to really think about. One, you want to make sure that you answer all the questions. Whatever the essay is asking for, you want to be sure that you take the time to fully answer each of the questions. The second part, be sure to tell your story. Don't tell my story. Don't tell Miss Joyce's story. Don't tell anyone else's story. Tell your story, because whether or not you understand, but through writing, when you're telling a story or something that relates directly to you, there's naturally more passion, and you're much better at telling that story, especially when you're writing it out. So tell your story. Number three, there, follow up. So after you submit an application for a scholarship, there should be some contact that's listed. I always send a follow up message that shows them that you're interested, you're really looking forward to hearing back from them as far as your scholarship application, and then that can also be your contact for any updates. Last but not least, apply early and often. The earlier you start the application process for scholarships, the more likely you are to obtain funding, and also the more likely you are to receive those scholarships. And by the often part, I mean apply for as many as you're willing to put the time in for applying. So don't hesitate. Don't feel like you've applied enough. If you have the time and you're really looking for scholarship money, you need to keep applying. There's not a limit. That's what I'm getting at. All right. So with scholarship essays, I now want to talk about why the scholarship essay is critical. So competitive scholarships usually have hundreds of applications. I mean, countless applications. And you need to view this as your opportunity to get to know, well, you need to view this as your opportunity for the reader, whoever's reviewing your essay, to get to know you. And what do I mean by that? So if, say for example, your GPA is not as high as it could have been. So say you have a 3.1 and you know deep down inside you could have easily obtained a 3.5, 3.75, 4.0. But as a result of life or a family situation, you may have a younger sibling or someone that you have to take care of, or even you may even have to help out with a grandparent or something like that. That takes away from your time as far as your studies. Now, I don't make excuses. I'm not saying you're making excuses. You're just explaining your situation. And what you can do is through your essay, you can communicate that. And to the reader, when someone reads that, they they may be able to empathize with that, saying, "Oh, well, I understand. Maybe I had to help a sibling or grandparent or something else out when I was in school." And when they see that, then they're able to relate to that. So they're more likely to give you credit for your situation overall. So again, this is an opportunity for them to get to know you, and you can elaborate and share more about your story through your essay. Um, and that's the way to view it. The image that I have there. It's like someone looking in through a window and seeing the person that wrote the essay. So that's what the essay allows the reader to do. All right. So the second part to that is knowing the purpose of the scholarship and award. And this has to be evident in your writing as well. So not only are you submitting a scholarship application and applying for funding, but the reason that that scholarship is even out there has to be some underlying reason. It's usually tied to some cause or some willingness or want to help someone out. So let me give you an example. So I mentioned yesterday that my aunts, they get together and they put money together to give a scholarship in my grandmother's name, Bertha May Rogers, and she was all about education. That was her thing. So when they're reviewing applications for this scholarship, if someone, they communicate a strong desire or strong interest in the importance of education, guess what? That's going to immediately remind them of my grandmother, who was all about education. Those are the little tips or the little nuggets that can really, really make a difference in your scholarship application. Let me give you another example. So say there's a scholarship that's given in the name of, I don't know, a professional inventor, someone who invented things. And the scholarship may be titled the XYZ Scholarship for Diversity. Well, you apply for if someone applies for that scholarship and they talk about diversity and they don't mention the importance of inventing new things or bringing new ideas to the table, then the readers who are taking all those scholarship applications into consideration and reading essays, they're not going to make that same connection as they would if someone mentioned something about the importance of being able to invent, innovate, or create something. Because if they see that in the application, it immediately reminds them of the reason that the scholarship was put into place. So remember that when you're writing in a scholarship application, or when there's a scholarship that's listed, anytime you can di- dive a little deeper and find out more information about the scholarship, why it came about, who the scholarship is named in honor of, all of that is important. Also with civic organizations or clubs that are out there, oftentimes they have a mission statement on their webpage. Anytime you can tie your goals or your dreams and what you're going to do with the scholarship money to the mission of that organization, it's an easy win. You immediately allow the reader to make the connection. So I don't want to spend any more time on that, but hopefully you got the emphasis that I've placed on understanding the why behind the scholarship and the reason it's being given, because you can use that to your advantage. So um, I'll go ahead and keep going here. All right. So I talked yesterday about the importance of these four aspects within your essay. So anytime you're completing an essay and you can add this information in, it, it's a great opportunity for you to communicate more with the reviewer of the essay. So when you talk about service to others, I mentioned yesterday that if an organization or if a group or if an individual is awarding a scholarship to someone, there's usually a kind of a excuse me, there's usually a self-fulfillment in serving others. And when you take that into consideration, and if you're applying for a scholarship, you want to communicate that the scholarship will enable you or allow you to be of service to someone else, just like the service that you're receiving through this potential scholarship opportunity. So be sure to communicate that. The second thing that I have there is something that you'll be graded on as far as a scholarship, but I say respectable academic achievements. Even if a scholarship says that we're looking for individuals who have a 3.5 GPA, and say yours is a 2.9, still apply for the scholarship. If it's not one of the requirements that will eliminate you from contention, you can still put your scholarship application in. Now, that's where when you tell your story through the essay, you can kind of gain ground. You can say, hey, I, I tried my best in school. I done what I could. Due to life circumstances, this is where I was. This is where I landed. This is where my GPA was. You can communicate all of that. The third one there, anytime you can mention any volunteer work that you've done, and tie that volunteer work to serving others and the impact that it had on your life as well as the impact of others, all that's good to have. Also be mindful of your volunteer hours. You can track those on your LinkedIn profile and anywhere else that you're kind of tracking what you've done as far as your resume. The fourth thing that I have listed there is any high school club or involvement. If you're the founding member of an organization of a club at your high school that is tied to the mission of a scholarship that's given, oh man, you're showing impact. That's kind of like a true recipe for success there. So anytime you've been a founding member of a club or organization, communicate that through your essay or through whatever opportunity you get in the scholarship application. And the other four things I have there are what are your goals, career goals, any letters of recommendation you have, any question. Well, whenever the question prompt asks for a commitment to DEI or how the scholarship will benefit you or any career aspirations, be sure that you clearly communicate um, what your achievements are or what you will do with the funds or the money or whatever the case may be. So be sure to pay attention to that question and prompt, to the prompt. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, your scholarship application is your opportunity to level the playing field. Now, when I say level the playing field, it means that life happens to many individuals in different shapes, forms, fashion, whatever you want to call it. And in taking that into consideration, there are some people that are at somewhat of a disadvantage. And when there's a disadvantage or when you feel as though you could have achieved more, done more, then you have the opportunity with your scholarship essay to kind of tell your story. So let me give you another example. So as I was going through my undergraduate coursework and my degree, my major was finance. I was working 3 part-time jobs, and I used the phrase that Chris Rock would say. I think he used it in some movie, but he'd say, "I worked 3 jobs just to be broke." That was me. I mean, I didn't have any extra money. Everything I went towards like my car payment, insurance, and food, and that was it. Didn't have any other money. But in my finance classes, I'd always sit in the front. I'd be tired. I still enjoyed my college experience, and that probably contributed to other things. But anyhow, um, I would sit in the front, and I was always on time, and I made sure that I done my best to pay attention. So one day I was having a conversation with one of my finance instructors. And he's like, Gilbert, you still working those 3 jobs? Like, yeah, that's what I got to do. If I want to live and have my own car, that's what I have to do. And I felt from that point on, or just through conversations with that instructor, that he understood that my situation wasn't like 90% of the other students in the class. They had parents who paid for everything for them. They didn't have to worry about working. They just they just had a different situation. Now, as a result, they could spend more time in the library studying, or uh, they didn't have to worry about going to work or anything like that after class. They could stick around. So that, not saying it's necessarily a disadvantage, because I think a lot of the work and things that I've done during that time, helped me along the way. But at the same time, from a strictly having the adequate time to study and everything else, it was different. So um, that's if I was writing an essay, I would explain that through that essay and talk about how, you know, life challenges and everything else, put me in a different situation. So that's what I mean by that. So that's what I mean by leveling the playing field, and you can do that through the essay. All right, so now let's go into the different components, or the different things that should be included in your essay. Um, or, and I have four listed there. One, originality. So anytime you can tell your story, that's what makes it original and unique to you. But originality is important. Number two, be sure that you're answering the underlying question, and I'm going to give you an example. And then three, anytime you can share a slice of life, this relates to your story. And then four, your passion will be evident when you're telling your story as opposed to someone else's. So let's go ahead and go through these. So when I say originality, I mean you talk about within your topic what makes you you. And many scholarship applications or many essay prompts will give you an opportunity to talk about you and what makes you tick, what's important to you. And this is where you tell your story essentially. So if I'm telling my story and I'm being original, I'm saying, hey, I grew up in a small town, Munfordville, Kentucky, youngest of seven in a single parent household where my parents weren't together. My dad still helped out, but uh, there's something to say about being in the household and on a daily basis, navigating just the many different directions and things that you'll experience in high school, as well as getting ready to go to college or whatever else. So if I'm telling my story, that's my story. So my story isn't someone else's, and um, that my story is what makes it somewhat unique. So that is what makes you you. And as I communicate that, I can innately just add more passion into what I'm saying. So that's what I mean by be original. Tell your story, not someone else's. All right, number two, answer the underlying question. So what do I mean by this? So example. Um, so on the surface, it's usually simple to answer whatever prompt or whatever is being asked of you to communicate through an essay. But usually there's usually something underlying that the individuals who are awarding the scholarship to someone would like to see. And let me give you an example. So say a parent says, what's up with James? They say, what's up with James? And what the parent really wants to know is, um, what happened? Why is James missing school or something like that? So say you're in high school and you know that James got in trouble yesterday for, I don't know, talking during class or something like that. Got in trouble some kind of way, and your parent catches word of it. And you're aware as a student. But when your parents come up and they say, "What's up with James?" They're not saying, "Oh, what's James doing today?" They're more so asking, Why did James get in trouble?" And I want you to tell me. So that's an example of someone asking a question and wanting something a little more than what they're saying on the surface. So it's important for you to identify that, and you do that by researching whomever the scholarship awarding group is, by learning more about them. And this goes back to tying it to the reason or the purpose that scholarship is being given. That will allow you to sort of get a leg up on your scholarship application through that essay. So another one and another example is, so say an essay question may be, why do you want to study business? Well, what they really want to know is, why do you want to study business, and why are you the best future person leading a business effort, and why we should give these funds to you. So anytime you can take it beyond the surface, that's what you should do. Now, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to give them, a book. You want to make it clear, concise, and give them what they're looking for in within a short amount of time. So, because if they're reviewing a lot of scholarship applications, then you want to make something stand out. So, answer the underlying question. That's the second part. And number three is share a slice of life. So I say a slice. You don't want to share the whole pizza. The reason being is they have a lot of pizzas to take a look at. And anytime you can share just a slice that can, activate someone's emotions or get someone thinking about you specifically, that will stand out. That's what you want to do. So I've been reading scholarship applications, I think the past 2 weeks, and anytime someone goes and then they share, something unique to them and what they've overcome or how they're trying to better themselves through education, then all of that usually stands out. So here I say don't try to explain everything, just give them a slice. So an example, if you're asked to share about campus or community involvement, you could share what motivated you to get involved with an activity in the community. So if I just share, hey, my community involvement, I volunteer at the local Boys and Girls Club. Boom, I answered the question. But when I'm giving a slice of life, I'm saying, hey, I volunteer with the Boys and Girls Club because I didn't have one, and I feel or I see the benefits of the Boys and Girls Club and how it impacts the lives of students or children or whomever else. The statement that I made the second time is much more impactful than, hey, I volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club. So that's an example. You share a slice of life. You do that by including what motivates you or what you're passionate about or something like that. So I take a simple sentence, I make it two sentences, and uh, give the reader a lot more. All right. So how do you personally benefit from participating? That's an example of what you could share. Or you can even share, how you stay motivated to help others, and it may be a short sentence or a couple of sentences about what motivates you overall. So, slice of life. Remember, make that a part of your essay completion. Just don't give them the whole pizza. All right, here's number four. Yeah, we're on number four. A passion. So when it comes to passion, and I always say that passion will liven up your essay. And when you get a chance to choose the topic for an essay, this is where you easily choose something that you're passionate about. And when you choose something that you're passionate about, it will naturally come out on paper through the examples that you use. So, um, passion, anything you're passionate about, you can write about that. That should automatically trigger a light bulb that you feel excited to share more about you. And probably don't need to elaborate too much on that one, but passion is critical. All right, so I talked about those four different areas. So originality, um, passion, you communicate, answering all the questions, and then also sharing that slice of life. All of those are big areas as far as your essay, and all that can be easily communicated through your essay. Now, once you start writing, this is another thing to think about. So share something personal, have a thesis, have some sort of goal of what you're trying to communicate in a central point or a central idea that you want the reader to walk away with. Number three, expand upon your accomplishments. Beware of meaningless facts. They're out there, and they're easy to mix into what you're talking about. And what that does is when a reader has to read 40, 50, 60, 70 applications, they're thinking, oh my goodness, just going on to the next one, because meaningless facts, they take you nowhere, and you don't want to add a whole bunch of that into your essay. The next one, avoid cliches. I mean, those statements out there that apply to everyone. And again, you want to make it unique to you. And then last but not least, don't write a sob story to evoke pity. I've seen a lot of those in essays. Now, not saying that you don't tell your story, but through the way in which you communicate your story, that will have a huge impact on the reader and how they view you through what limited information they have, which is what you communicate through that essay. So If your story is sad, tell your story, and that alone can, you know, give readers an idea of your situation and what you've overcome. But sob stories just to evoke pity, that shouldn't be your approach. Your approach should be to tell your story, and be sure that that's what you're doing. All right. Another tip that I provide, just to make sure that everyone is aware and stays kind of uh, putting your best foot forward, is to get an editor, get someone to look over your work. It could be a friend who is a great writer, or it could be a teacher, a parent, a mentor, someone. Get it. In other words, get additional eyes on your essay once it's complete. Why is that important? Because you can become so familiar with the work that you've done that it could be easy to overlook something. And it's probably happens to me with the slides that I put together. You may notice something, you're like, oh man, forgot to put, period there, or you forgot your question mark or something like that. And because, I'm so familiar with it, it's easy to overlook. But when you get someone on the outside to take a look at your slides, or for this, in the case of the scholarship writing, when you get someone else to look at your essay, they're able to um, identify anything that stands out, or anything, some things that you may miss in your writing. So be sure to ask someone. And teachers, a lot of times, they're willing to help out. You know, talk to your parents, your mentor, whoever. Just get a second set of eyes on your writing. That way, you can account for any minute issues that may be out there. All right. So, as far as the individual sections of your essay, the introduction by far is the most important. And what you can do through the introduction is you can lose a reader, if you don't pull them in with what you're telling or the story that you're telling. So it's important when someone's reading a whole bunch of essays, a lot of essays, for you to have something in that introduction that pulls them in. Now, um, what can I do when I'm trying to pull someone in? I can either pose a question or use some really detailed, um, use a detailed description of an event or something like that. And when I say this, I always use the example of trying to start an essay out. And um, so, say I use this as an example. So, say picture my family and I jumping for joy as I walked across the stage at graduation. I am now destined to move to California and start my entry level position as a creative writer for Disney. Who would have known that a kid from Munfordville, Kentucky, with such a loving family but minimal financial resources to contribute to my college education, could make it to this point? I didn't either, but with the help of this scholarship committee and their contributions to my future, this dream will become my reality. Boom. That's all it takes. So I could start out with, "Hi, I'm Gilbert. I'm from Munfordville, Kentucky, and um, I need scholarship money." Nope. I mean, it works. It can fulfill the goal of having an introduction. However, anytime I can, use description and allow someone to kind of picture what the scholarship funds can allow me to accomplish, that's where you really invoke some emotion in the reader, where they feel like, yes, I want to help this person who's seeking this entry level position at Disney, and through my scholarship contribution, I can help them achieve that. And also, they can envision you and your family celebrating. So that's just an example of how you start, or you provide an introduction that pulls the reader in, as opposed to just a general introduction. Now, again, this is something that can stand out, it can help you out. It's just a tip. If you have any questions about this, I'm happy to work with anyone on this. All right. So the third part, or the second most important part, is your conclusion. Now, I'm not going through the body as much. That is where you talk more about what you've achieved, your community service hours, and what motivates you, and what you're going to hopefully achieve in the future. But the introduction is the most important part, because that's what pulls the reader in. But the next most important, or I'm not gonna say the most important, because you still have to sell what you've done and what you hope to accomplish. But I really want you to also pay attention to what you leave the reader with once you conclude your essay. And I say you must put a bow on it. And you want to leave a lasting impression with the reader. And if possible, you want to end with something that's motivational, meaning someone still wanting to help you out. And to give you a couple of examples, so if I'm writing an essay and I've had a solid intro, I've had a great, you know, telling of my history and what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. I want to kind of put a bow on this situation. I don't want to summarize everything that I've just told the reader because, again, if they're reading a number of additional scholarship essays, then you want to make it short and sweet. So, in my situation, the example that I used about the individual, getting that job at Disney, at the end of my essay, I'm going to have something along the lines of, um, thank you again for this opportunity to share my experiences. I can't wait to see my family there on the stage with me as I walk on the stage through graduation and start planning ahead for the next steps as I go to Disney to become a creative writer or something like that. Um, but something along those lines where you sum it up, you bring it full story. I'm not gonna go back and summarize my community service hours and everything else, but I want to leave a solid note and hopefully that picture that I painted earlier with the reader. And what this does is it helps you as a scholarship applicant to make an impression, and that's what you want to do through your essay. You don't have a lot of time to do it. You can't tell your complete life story, but with what you do have, you want to make the most of it. And that's how you essentially conclude your essay. All right. So common essay topics. So and these are essay topics. I do want to share some of these because these are different essay topics you may see when you go and you apply for scholarships. They may ask you to share what you've done. Please tell me about your most significant leadership experience and how it has prepared you for college level leadership. I mean, that's an opportunity again for you to tell what a scholarship could do, how it will contribute to the leadership you've done. But then remember what I said earlier. You also want to look up and see what leader, there's likely some leader or something behind the effort to provide this scholarship. You want to find out more info about them. The second one there, what can you become? How can this award help you live out your dreams? And then the third one, who are you? Tell us about an academic experience that challenged you in some way. Now, these are common essay topics that you'll see on a lot of scholarship applications. So just be prepared, and you can have like a general scholarship template that you use that answers these questions, where you've already added in what motivates you, where you already have a solid introduction. So um, just be mindful of those. All right. As it relates to telling your story, this whole kind of scholarship tip application process, presentation is more so about you learning to put your best foot forward and tell your story. So, talking about ourselves is challenging, I know, but I say imagine you're having a conversation with a best friend. You think about what types of things you would talk about. Likely, you're sharing your hopes, your dreams, your fears, things that kind of I say make you tick, but things that make you you and what's unique to you. Now, scholarship readers want to get to know you on a deeper level, and when you do that, com- when you communicate your story through your scholarship application, it gives you a much better opportunity or greater opportunity to achieve that scholarship. So, most impressive essays are those that give us a glimpse into these conversations, and if successful, they create a sense in the reader that you are worth investing in. So, uh, that's what telling your story does. All right, self-reflection and preparation. Um, Things that you can do and take note of just to have as you get ready to apply for scholarships. One, you could write out an accomplishment that you're most proud of. Write that out. It's easy. Once you write it out and you're passionate about an accomplishment, if you say it's the accomplishment that you're the most proud of, then you're likely passionate about it. There's a reason behind it. Be sure to include that when you write this out. The second one, causes that you're most passionate about. Are there specific causes that relate to you for whatever reason? If you can make a few sentences about that, you can easily plug and play into an essay application. The third one, talents and abilities that make you unique. This is something to have on hand. Number four, any challenges you faced and overcome. This is where again, it's your story. You're telling more about you, and that can make a huge difference. And then the last one there, how do you plan to change the world? What will your contributions to society look like? And when you talk about scholarships and the goal of awarding scholarships being centered around um, someone wanting to serve others and help others out. Well, anytime you can communicate your plan for changing the world, that's also showing that you're going to be of service to others. So self-reflection is key in preparing to craft your essay. You think about your accomplishments you're most proud of, the causes you're passionate about, and the talents and abilities that make you unique. All right, choose quality over quantity. I say that because you wanna be sure that the quality of what you write is more important than the quantity. The goal is not to have a 5-page essay. The goal is to have one essay, if it's one page that highlights who you are and what you want to accomplish, and you put a bow on it at the end, you have a solid introduction. Those are the things that that stand out. Do not underestimate yourself. We all have a story to tell. Don't think that, hey, my story's not boring because I didn't, overcome 15 different hurdles. But just tell what you have overcome, or what you've learned, or what motivates you. All those things are important. All right, so drafting an essay with Julie. Julie is a fictional junior at the University of Oregon who wants to apply for scholarships. Done some self-reflection and came up with a few ideas for potential essays. So, in Julie's situation, writing down that Julie played tennis all through high school. She played football, basketball, soccer, whatever you played. Just write that out. Enjoys singing and participates in a cappella groups on campus. Top scholar in the College of Education with dreams of becoming a teacher, and then they're also passionate about girls and women's rights around the world and has traveled abroad to volunteer. So if there's a scholarship prompt saying blank scholars are committed to making the world a better place, they are inventing solutions, advocating for others, and giving back to their communities. However, most started with small steps. What steps, big or small, have you taken to make your own impact on the world? Limit 1,800 characters. Then in Julie's essay, Julie should write about well, the question is, would Julie write about her experiences in acapella or volunteer work abroad? And the answer is research the organization, understand the mission, values, review the prompt, and then write about that volunteer experience. That, of course, is kind of the best way to approach it. So overall experiences volunteering and abroad, or an impactful relationship she had with a particular child that she helped out. So that's where you bring out your best. You're communicating what has helped you and what you're passionate about. And those detailed examples from your experiences are what will support your claims. So I know I've talked a lot. I've provided a lot of info, but now we're gonna wrap things up and kind of open it up for you all to reach out and ask any questions you all may have through HJW, through our webpage, or just send us an email. And I'm happy to ask and answer those questions and help any of you all out with any scholarship applications you may have. But I wanted to again thank you all for your time, and wish you the best of luck as you start to apply for scholarships and as you help any other student or someone else apply.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rogers. As always, the information was timely, and we appreciate all of the information that you shared with us. As Dr. Rogers mentioned, we will have this a copy of the recording listed on our Facebook page. So please go out and visit our page. Make sure you like us at HJW Career and Financial Literacy Institute on Facebook. Also, you can visit our website at hjwfinancial.org. We will have an updated list of class offerings. We usually post those on the first of each month. So please go out there, see what content we're going to be sharing for the month. And as an addition, if you are interested in seeing a particular topic discussed, make sure that you send us a message, email us, or post it on our Facebook page. We're always interested to hear what you all would like additional information on. We know there is a lot going on with student loans right now, things of that nature, interest rate hikes. So you may have questions about credit cards and the best way to get through that, a debt elimination and things of that nature. So make sure you share those topics with us and we'll be glad to offer them. We are going to be doing a financial panel in April, so we will be taking discussion points for that as well. You will be able to hear from myself, Dr. Rogers, Anthony Leachman, our executive director, and we'll be discussing some pertinent topics that are taking place right now. All right, so with that said, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We are going to sign out for now. We pray that you all have an amazing weekend. Be safe out there, and we will see you next time. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.